Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Riley, the editor of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and welcome to this AJC live event, which is a conversation with our cartoonist, Mike Luckovich. And maybe more importantly, thanks to all of you who are back. Some of you know we did this not so long ago and had a few technical problems. So thanks for hanging in there with us. We're doing these live events. We get better at it every time. And we really appreciate that subscribers have responded so positively to these kinds of events that we do. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being a subscriber, because that helps us do our work. We really appreciate that. And this is going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this a lot. We're going to chat with Mike Luckovich. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mike, our two-time Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about his cartoons. I'm going to get him to tell, I hope, some embarrassing and funny stories as well. And I think you'll enjoy it very, very much. And one thing to think about is there is a Q&A function on your screen. And we will eventually get to a spot where we will take some of your questions that we can ask Mike, that you'd like to ask Mike. So start thinking about that. And if you want to put those in the Q&A, don't wait till the last minute so we can make good use of that time. So Mike, are you there somewhere? I hope that we can get this going and jump into one of your cartoons. All right, good to see you.
Wow. Hey, it's great to see you, Kevin. And thank you all, AJC subscribers, for being here today. We did this probably a month or two ago, and it was my fault. I kind of screwed it up because I was in my basement, and my basement has such rotten Wi-Fi. And so it was sort of buffering a lot. And so now I'm in a better place, and I hopefully won't screw it up this time.
Okay. Well, Mike, we're going to jump right in with, there's some cartoons that I know you want to talk about. So let's talk about this one that you've done relatively recently. And we'll talk, really, some of the cartoons we're going to talk about you've just done in the past couple of days. So people are right. If you're a part of this event, you're going to be very current on Mike's cartoons. But this one really, there's been this long debate about what's being taught in Georgia classrooms, and I know that you've always been interested in it. So, we're going to show these cartoons, but talk a little bit about what led you to this cartoon.
Well, it's not only in Georgia classrooms; it's kind of happening across the country where, education has become so politicized, and they're trying to give sort of a sanitized version of American history, which I think is stupid, and I think that American kids are able to understand things in context, and we need to talk about what happened in our past, like slavery, without whitewashing it. So the cartoon I did. I have a book out. I guess that's why we're here today. We're talking about the book. This is the cover of my book. And I've got a classroom, and it's a teacher's up front, and she's got a GOP approved U.S. history book. There it is. And she's saying, after getting free passage to America, they immediately received jobs. And that's the slavery chapter.
So I'm sure you've gotten some reaction to this, but talk about that and why you chose it for the cover of your book.
Well, the book is called The Twisted History of the GOP, and it's about how the GOP has sort of, what's the right word? Has sort of collapsed. That's not the right word exactly, but it was once a rational party, and now it's moving farther and farther right and farther to the crazy. And so I thought that was sort of a good cover cartoon to begin with. And so the book sort of goes through, when I really thought that GOP started taking a wrong turn was during George W. Bush's term. And prior to that, I had always thought that, the way politics works, the way America works, is that it was sort of like a plane on autopilot. Whoever was flying the plane, the plane was going to land safely. But now I'm having my doubts about that, and so I'm trying to let people know through my cartoons where I think the country's going. What I really love is that, in the midterms, and now even in Georgia right now with the runoff election, to see Americans, Georgians in line in these long lines. They shouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 hours, but just to see them in these lines and participating and standing up for democracy, that is such an amazing thing, and it makes me feel that the country has a future. And I wasn't feeling that so much up until the midterms. And boy, have I gotten long-winded. Kevin, jump in and.
Well, I mean, going along that line of you're kind of focused on the Republican Party and its hard turn to the right, which is a theme, I think, in a fair amount of cartoons. I think we have another one we want to show as, you know, I think you did this a little bit after we found that the Republicans would for sure take control of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yeah, right. After they were going to take the House, you know, the focus, I believe, is going to be on silliness. And so the caption above the cartoon, as you can see, it says, "Now that Republicans control the House." And Kevin McCarthy is holding Hunter Biden's laptop, and he's saying this session will be spent investigating why his caps lock is on. So I really enjoyed drawing this cartoon. If you know, it's so much fun for me to draw the various characters. Like the first one is Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, McCarthy, and then Lauren Boebert, however you say the name. But what I do is I go on Google and I find an image like of Marjorie Taylor Greene, an image that I like, and then I just look at that image and then I draw it, and I don't use pencil when I do it. I just use ink. So at times I will screw up, and so my originals always have a lot of whiteout on them. So I'll like white out Marjorie Taylor Greene's face, then redraw it. But it was just I really enjoyed doing this particular cartoon just to draw the characters, because they are, especially like Jim Jordan. He's such a goofy looking guy, and so that was a lot of fun.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. You know, not necessarily Jim Jordan, who's from my, you know, where the state I grew up in, and he is an unusual character. We'll just leave it at that. But talk a little bit about, you know, you mentioned your sort of process for you know, drawing people and how, but like, who's been a favorite? I mean, you've drawn so many people through the years. Like if I said to you, all right, Mike, you can only draw one more cartoon, and I want you to draw the person you enjoy drawing most, who would you pick?
You know, I wouldn't say I enjoy drawing this person the most, but it would have to be Trump, because Trump has had such a huge impact, not necessarily for the good, on this country and the direction this country is going in. And it's interesting because he is no longer president, but he's still this, you know, leading character on the right, and maybe the best shot for the Republican nomination for 2024. So I would probably draw him. And he's fun to draw for a number of reasons. One is he's orange, so it's fun when I can draw a color cartoon. Yeah, there he is. So I did this one this week, and Kevin, we can talk about this because you and I talked back and forth before I ended up drawing this. You know, when I do a drawing, before I do a final drawing of it, I will email to Kevin and a couple other editors my sketches. And the reason I do that, and the reason why Kevin wants to see them, is sometimes I'm looking at a sketch that I've come up with, and it's like looking at the word WHO for an hour or something. It loses all meaning to me. So I need others to kind of look at the drawing and see if it works or not, or if it's saying something that I didn't intend it to say. So I did. Let
me jump in there, Mike.
Okay, yeah.
I look at it so that I know who I'm going to get nasty phone calls from the next day, usually. But well, let's go back to you drawing Trump and what I mean. We have him sitting there at this table, and I do want to talk about the cartoon and our back and forth on it.
Yeah.
But when you draw Trump, what are you thinking about, and what are you doing? I happen to know a couple things, and even sometimes, you know, I'll get back. You know, some of my feedback will be maybe we're a little too focused on Trump. But with this
Yeah.
one, it was a different thing. But when you draw him, what do you caricature?
Well, yeah. So he's got that crazy hair that I don't know what that's all about. But he's got it. It's really long in the back, and then it comes down in some weird fashion. And then when he puts his orange makeup on, for some reason he likes to have it a little bit white under his eyes. I don't know why that is, but that's just something. So when I love drawing him in color because I'll draw him orange and then put the white under his under the bags under his eyes. And then what I do, and then in this cartoon he's talking, but I really like drawing his pursed lips. He's just kind of an interesting looking person. And then if he's standing, a lot of times he's like leaning way over. I don't know what's going on with that. And I always draw him with very tiny hands. Now in this cartoon, he's so small that I had to make the hands big enough for them to be seen. But when I draw a bigger Trump head, I'll make his hands just very, very tiny, because of I think he was in a debate with the Republican candidates, and somebody got into a thing about the size of his hands or something. So I just always make them small.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about our back and forth on this cartoon.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll just Mike knows this about me, so I'll let the audience know, because we do go back and forth. There's certain kinds of imagery in cartoons. I've sort of learned the hard way, having been an editor all these years, that you have to be a little bit cautious about. And some of it can be a little bit obvious, like a and we're going to leave the image up for a while so people can kind of know what the back and forth between a cartoonist and an editor can be like. But I've just learned Nazi imagery can be extremely disturbing, upsetting to people. So if you're going to use something like that, you got to think long and hard about it. So Mike, go ahead and talk about your concept for the cartoon, and a little bit of why you think this works, and I can then chime in about why ultimately I said okay.
Well, when I was trying to come up with an idea, I know that Nazi imagery is tough, and people are sensitive to it. And I know with my cartoons that I want to be sure when I'm doing a cartoon that the symbolism I use doesn't overpower the cartoon, because then you lose the message you were trying to make, and people get pissed off because your symbolism is so strong. And that's happened to me in the past, where it's just blown up. So in this one, I thought, well, I just thought it was a fun, even though it was Nazi related, it was a kind of a humorous way of looking at it. And it seemed like it appealed to me because I could just see that happening almost in an absurd way at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, him having a dinner and getting the Nazi salute like that. I just thought it was I kind of thought it was a fun way to do a very serious kind of topic.
Yeah. Now, I will say that when we had the debate about whether we would go with this, and and honestly, we don't have a ton of debates, but when we do, they're healthy and they're really civil. I mean, Mike, isn't really one of these kind of temperamental artists. He's reasonable.
But when I break down into tears and start screaming, Kevin will usually back off and just let me do the cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take it too far, but on this one, I actually think part of the reason the cartoon works is the imagery is a little bit in the eye of the beholder, of course, right? Because these guys, and then I also think in a subtle way it makes the point, which was Trump and his handlers seem to be unaware of the deeply serious and emotional and troubling reaction so many people would have to him having dinner, with the guy he had dinner with. So I thought it worked on a lot of levels. And, there are times when I think Mike and I both agree we may be overthinking it.
Yeah.
But that one was tough. So let's move on to another topic that's been a big one.
Let me mention one thing on that cartoon, though, Kevin, is it was interesting because the day that it ran, I had to mail something. So I go into my post office, and one of the people working in the post office, my friend Philip, he says, "Man, I love that cartoon today." And then when I got back, I got an email from someone that said, "You are a a-hole, and F you for that cartoon." So, it was one of those kind of cartoons that elicits various responses. And I like that. I mean, I figure if I can dish it out, I should be able to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know you get a lot of strong reactions. So let's talk about what's become sort of a favorite topic, and then for you and talk, and you can set up the cartoon before we show it. And then again, a reminder: if you've got questions for Mike, go ahead and put them in that Q&A spot on your screens, and we will get to those in a little bit and try to ask as many as we can. But so we're in the middle of this runoff. Herschel Walker has become a topic for you. Talk about why. Talk about what you think about when you draw him.
Yeah.
And then we'll show a cartoon that you've done recently.
Okay. Wow. He is I'm not sure what to say. I feel for him in a way because, I think he's got some serious mental issues. And he's been thrust on this stage. This was Trump's idea. Trump isn't even going to come to Georgia to stump for him. So he's just kind of out there. But he said so many things that are just so, kind of ridiculous. And it's just amazing to me to watch this. And it's like daily. It's almost he says something so ridiculous. And so he's really been kind of an easy target. This latest cartoon that I did, this was after we had gone, my wife and I had gone to vote. And we actually didn't vote the first day. We went on I think it was Friday, the first day of voting, and it was like going to be a 2-hour wait or something. And we had something going on. So we actually came back. But as I had said earlier, I was so heartened to see these huge lines. So I got to thinking about it, and I came up with this. It's, I've got, as you can see, crowds of people forming the words "Herschel, go back to Texas" as they go to cast their ballot. So I love seeing young and old, black and white people just turning out. It's just so amazing to me, and I hope for the good of the country and Georgia that we bring that Senator Warnock is reelected.
Well, you brought up your wife, Margot, and I know just from knowing both of you and working with you that you've been married a long time,
Yes.
Great big family. But my favorite story is always hearing about how you met. So I'm going to get you to tell people that one because it's such a good story.
All right. Well, so we this year in September we were married for 40 years, and we met in college, and we were in an art class together. Believe it or not, we were in an art class, and we were drawing nudes, and so the human body is really fun to caricature, and but I was the only one in that class that was drawing cartoon naked people, but my wife, then person I didn't know, was seated next to me, and she was looking at what I was drawing, and I think the reason she married me, she thought, this poor idiot, he's really stunted, and I need to help him out. So I was drawing these cartoon nudes, and so we just we met in art class, and since then we've had 4 kids, and our youngest daughter, there's a 9-year difference between the 3 older ones and Lucy, and Lucy's a senior at Georgia State. All our kids are artistic, but Lucy is a painter, and she's amazing, and she's a much better artist than I am, and so it's kind of cool. I pretty much suck at everything except I can kind of draw. So it's nice to see that and Margot's my wife is a painter, so it's cool that to see Lucy what she's doing. So she has a website, LucyLuckovichArt.com. If you all want to see what she's doing.
I have to ask. I mean, can she do cartoons? Because I'm always
You're always looking for something better out there, you know. So, you know, she actually was doing courtroom sketches that some appeared in the AJC and on various local stations. So she's very talented.
Yeah. Well, since you've revealed a little bit about both your personal life and your career, and we'll probably get back to some of that, I happen to know that another great story involves a cartoonist I worked with in Ohio, Mike Peters, who's a friend of
Yes.
yours. And this is kind of a classic story that very few people have gotten to hear. So,
Okay.
again, these are our subscribers. We love them.
Okay.
We're here because they're their support.
Okay.
That story is a great one. Why don't you tell it?
Well, see, here's the great thing. You know, I have this fabulous job. I get to comment on what's going on in the world. I get to draw cartoons every day. I've been doing it for a really long time, and I love it. But as a cartoonist, you also get to do other kind of crazy things. So I've gone to the White House Correspondents' Dinner a few times, and so I was going, and Mike Peters, my cartoonist friend, we were both going. So we were at the hotel. I think it's the Hilton in Washington, and I called Mike's room. This was before the dinner started, and I said, Mike, listen, I'll meet you in the downstairs in the lobby. So bring a pair of sunglasses, and also bring the phone cord from your phone. Bring that with you too. And he said, okay. But he didn't ask me why. And so we meet in the lobby, and before the dinner, these are the dinners that Stephen Colbert gave a talk. We were at that one when George W. Bush was president. So it's a meeting of politicians and celebrities and media people, and they all get together for this dinner. So before the dinner starts, they have these cocktail parties. And so various media, like Reuters and the Washington Post and Time Magazine, various media outlets have these cocktail parties. So Mike Peters and I went into the Washington Post cocktail party, and we're in there. It's gotten really crowded because George Clooney showed up, along with all kinds of other people, and it was really crowded. So I said to Mike, okay, Mike, follow me. And so we go outside the cocktail party in the entrance, and I get on one side and Mike gets on the other side of the door, and we put on our sunglasses, and then we take our phone cords and we stick them in our ear, and then we run it down our back so we look like we're security. And so we're standing there as people are coming in. We're trying to look official and not laugh. And we're telling women, okay, we need to look in your purse. And then so what we're going to do is we're going to wait for George Clooney to come out because he had a security detail, and we were going to try and join George Clooney's security detail. But then this is true. Henry Kissinger came out. Henry Kissinger comes out of the cocktail party, and he looks at Mike and I, and he said to Mike and I, "Will you escort me to the dinner?" He actually said this, and I said, "Well, sure." And so Mike and I so Henry's in the middle, and we're walking down this long hall. Mike and I are on each side of him, and we're walking down this long hall to the banquet place. And we're going down the hall, and in the middle of the hall, a bunch of people noticed that Henry Kissinger's walking down the hallway, and so they all started taking his picture. And so after a few, 10 or 15 seconds, I put my hand out and I said, "No more photos," and they all stopped taking his picture. And so then we continued to walk on, and then we get to the. By then, I think Henry was starting to think, maybe these guys aren't on the level. And so then we had to go through a metal detector, and Henry went onto his place at the dinner, and then Mike and I we got through the metal detectors. Then we were standing, and as people were coming through, we were asking them to take their shoes off and stuff like that. So being a cartoonist, it really has its perks.
Well, I'm glad I didn't know about that till well after it happened. I'll just leave it at that.
Yes.
Hey, we're gonna get to those questions. We got a few more minutes, and I know, Mike, there's at least a couple more cartoons you want to talk about. So I don't want to
Yeah.
throw you off, but I know that, and probably a lot of folks who are attending this know you're very active on Twitter, and
Oh,
but Twitter's changing.
yeah.
So and I think you have a cartoon that was it in the paper today? I mean, this is pretty
I
recent,
think
right?
it. I think it is in the paper today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
So
okay. So I've done a couple. I think this is like the third Elon Musk cartoon that I've done. And what's amazing to me is, obviously in some way Elon Musk is brilliant, but in another way he's also kind of stupid and self-destructive. So I was trying to get that across in this cartoon. And so as you can see, in the first three panels he's a boxer and he's beating himself up, and then in the final panel he's got his arm raised in victory, because that's kind of how he is. So I put this on social media, and what I do, I'll put a cartoon on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter, and then I'll wait a little while and I'll come back to see how many people are paying attention to it and liking it. It's a real quick way to get feedback. So I went back and I checked on Twitter, and the cartoon was no longer there. It had been taken down somehow. So I thought that was really weird. So I actually put on Twitter, I said, hey, the cartoon was taken down. I'm going to retweet it. So I put it up there, and it's still up there now. But I just thought that was weird that it got immediately pulled from Twitter. This is Mr. Free Speech, but he's like so sensitive when it comes to any criticism of himself.
Mike, one of your gifts and one of the things, I've said this to you, a lot through the years when we've worked together, is your ability to sense a huge moment, and to, come up with a brilliant idea in that moment. It's a gift. It's a skill. It's something I really admire about you. So talk a little bit about a cartoon when the President Biden was getting ready to name a new Supreme Court justice, and what you thought about, and then we'll pop the cartoon up as soon as you kind of make your, share how you thought about the occasion.
Well, yeah. So there has never been a Black female Supreme Court justice. And that's just an amazing thing. And I got to hand it to Biden. He's been so great appointing a diverse group of people to all, to the judiciary and to his posts in government, so when he chose his Supreme Court justice, I was thinking, there was a lot of kind of ugliness. People saying that he had chosen someone for her because she was a Black person and not because of her qualifications, which was nonsense. She's supremely qualified, and being on the court, she asked the best questions of all the members. But I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about the Republicans not being kind of hostile towards her. And so I started thinking about another person, Rosa Parks. And so I just sort of combined that and did this cartoon. And I like this cartoon. I drew it in black and white, like the photo of Rosa Parks seated in the front of the bus.
Did you get much reaction to this one? Because just seemed,
No, people, by and large really liked it, and so I have gotten a lot of very positive feedback from this cartoon. Probably one of the most popular cartoons I did this year.
Okay, all right. So we are going to move to the questions from the folks who are in the audience. And I'm going to start with the first one I think that came up, which is talk about your career path. I know this is kind of a funny story, and it could be a little bit of a long one, but give us the highlights of how you ended up becoming a cartoonist.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's weird. As a kid in school, I was always drawing cartoons. It seems like there's always a kid in class that draws cartoons, and I was that kid, and I just never matured enough to move past that. So I was always drawing cartoons. I went to a Catholic high school in Boise, Idaho, and I started drawing the nuns and the priests in kind of editorial cartoons, in editorial cartoon form. And at that point, I wanted to be a Mad Magazine cartoonist, but then I started noticing editorial cartoonists like Jeff McNelly, who was I loved his work. I loved his drawing style. And so, and then Mort Drucker from Mad Magazine. But I started drawing for my school newspaper, drawing these nuns and priests and pissing them off, but being a hero to the kids I went to school with. So I kind of liked that. And so I got through school, and I was at the University of Washington, and I was telling Margot, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, that I was thinking, I really don't know what I'm going to do. I was thinking about going into social work or something, but the only thing that I was really halfway decent at was cartooning. So I thought, well, I'm going to try and do that. And so I tried the best that I could. I couldn't get a job. So I sold life insurance for a couple of years. And I've got all kinds of weird stories about that, but I eventually found a job. My first job was in Greenville, South Carolina, and I was there for less than a year. I went to the New Orleans Times-Picayune, and then I went to I went to the AJC. So I've been at the AJC for over, I think it's like 34 years, and it's just been. I still love what I do every day. I get up and I'm excited to come up with an idea, and when I do a cartoon that I'm not particularly happy with, it's just I'm just like deflated, and I want the next day to come so that I can redeem myself and hopefully do a better cartoon. So that's how. It keeps me interested, and now the only difference is that thanks to the pandemic, or not thanks to the pandemic, because of the pandemic, I'm now in my basement. So, it's this unfinished hellhole, but I'm there, my wife is upstairs, and so I come up with my idea, I come up with my sketches, and then I send them to Kevin and a couple other editors, and that's how I work now.
So, Mike, this question I think is come up in a few different ways with our audience, but what do you do when you just don't have a good idea or you're struggling with an idea? Now, I know that what you don't do is ever take any of my suggestions, and maybe you can explain that a little bit. But
yeah, yeah, okay. Well, so you know what I like, it's like the worst day I'm having, the more I focus, and the more it's like sometimes when I'm having my worst day, I'll come up with some of my best cartoons that I think are my best, because I don't know why. It really focuses me. One way to explain it is that years ago, I used to be on CNN every Sunday or every other Sunday or something for a short time. And they would say, okay, Mike, they would introduce me and they'd say, okay, Mike's going to come up with a sketch based on what the viewers think is the top story. And so I would have like 20 minutes to come up with and draw the cartoon. So it was just a way. I would just like it's like I'm in a panic mode, but that focuses me and I can come up with something. So that's why on a hard day I can kind of scrape something together. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'll just do a cartoon that I'll just think, oh, like I said earlier, I'll feel like, oh crap, I really screwed up.
Well, again, I mean, what about some of my ideas?
Why? Yeah, your cartoon ideas are just so brilliant that if I started doing them, it would just I'd have to up my game just so much that I'm just not capable of doing that.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I can live with that explanation. Um, so one of the folks sent a question in, and I'll just read it because I think
Okay.
I love your accuracy in details, like Trump not drinking wine in the dessert cartoon. Where do you go to get such accurate details about your subject? And further, why do you insist on those details?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for that. I'm because I'm so plugged into the news. I read the AJC. I read numerous other newspapers. I'm on Twitter a lot because I follow numerous pundits, and when something is happening, they respond pretty much in real time. So I'm so immersed in everything, and I want to get stuff correct, so that when I'm doing a drawing, it's just it's important to me to make sure everything is right. And I've gotten to the point where most of the cartoons I can just kind of draw out without penciling in, so I can draw pretty fast, and so I have time to think about where I'm going to put everything and make it work. And so I hope that's a good answer. I don't know.
No, that's a good one. I can tell you from an editor's point of view, the precision in your cartoons, I think, is good because it makes it harder for people to find some detail that's wrong and focus on that criticism. They have to deal with the idea, the
Yeah.
actual point you're making if they want to criticize the cartoon.
But you know what? I still get like I got one from somebody. They said, well, if you look at my work, it's sort of a sketchy looking, and it's not completely perfect exactly. But one time I drew some like line sticking out. This sounds weird, but it's a guy's pants, and there was just like some little errant line. And so somebody wrote me in saying, you put a, I probably shouldn't talk about this, but you did something raunchy in this cartoon. And I'm just thinking, here I am, a middle-aged dude. Am I really going to try and sneak in someone's, do some little nasty drawing? And so people are weird. You just never know how they're going to react to stuff. And but I do normally when I get emails from people based on that kind of criticism, I kind of just don't reply, because I figure, why get into a thing with over something like that with someone? It's a no-win battle.
So another one of stories, this is a little bit of a secret, but maybe you can tell it since we have subscribers. They won't really tell anyone anyway.
No.
They'll keep the secret.
Okay.
Talk about the mural at the College Football Hall of Fame. That's one of my favorite stories to tell about you.
Okay, well, so whenever that college football museum was opening, the person in charge asked me if I would do a mural, and I thought, "Ooh, that would be great." So I did this mural thing. But what was weird is that I was thinking I was going to need paint cans and have to get up on a ladder and paint this thing. But I was able, and they wanted it done this way. They wanted me to do it on the computer. So I did it. I did these faces of all these college coaches in sort of their famous moments. And like, I don't know how many I did, 12 or 20. I think it's probably still up there. But so there's one of Vince Dooley. One of the famous scenes of Vince Dooley is when he's being carted by players off the field after they've won the national championship. So what I did is, all these football players and fans, I put myself in there. So I'm carrying Dooley off the field, and I just thought that was kind of fun. I did that on another. There's like 12 or 20 of these, and I put myself in a couple of different situations with their various football coaches.
So when you go to the College Football Hall of Fame and you go to the area where they honor coaches, there's this mural, and I invite you to try to find the different ways Mike has drawn himself, which is actually sort
the
of
dashingly handsome a person that you see, that will be me in numerous drawings. I tried to make myself really attractive, and it was hard.
So here's a question I think I've never heard you answer, so I'm going to ask this one.
Okay.
Do you choose a topic and then come up with a cartoon situation, or does the idea just come to you as an image?
Oh gosh, no. I read and I look for topics, and I'm on social media a lot, so I try and make sure that the topic is something that everyone has a reference point for, because if you do a cartoon and people don't know what you're talking about, if they don't know the reference, then they won't get the cartoon. So I just try and look for interesting stories, big stories, and then it's like trying to put a jigsaw puzzle together. I'm trying to like take different things in that people are familiar with, like the one of Rosa Parks on the bus. I try and take an image or something that people are familiar with, and then I try and twist it a little bit to make it fit with a current story, and to make and to have a point to have a point of view. So it's complicated, and sometimes it just happens just like bang like that, and then other times it's just grueling. It's like I think, okay, this is the day I don't come up with a cartoon, and it's really it's like sometimes I get, it's almost like I get a hopeless feeling, and then all of a sudden, as my panic increases, something will spur me on, and I'll come up with something, and so it's kind of different every day.
So this is a question too that I think people really enjoy your answer to. How do you keep a sense of humor about all of the awful news that you have to read every day? It's a question for a lot of journalists. So.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, but I think my cartoons have become a little harder edged than they were in the past. As I said earlier in the interview, America sort of worked just no matter who was in power. And now I see that, I think I knew this, but I see it in action. I realize how fragile our democracy is. And so I think my cartoons reflect that. But when I do these cartoons, I'm probably, in many respects preaching to the choir. It's like religion, I think, as far as the way people feel. But I keep trying to let people know, what's happening in the country, and try and cut through the nonsense and let people know that, we're at a point where, democracy is fragile, and we gotta come together and hold on to this. And I keep referring to the voting that's going on. I just, I drove past a place where people were voting yesterday, and there was a long line, and it just, I got a lump in my throat. I love that Americans are coming through and showing that democracy is important. And so that's what I'm trying to do with my cartoons.
Okay, so I think we just have about another minute here, if I'm not mistaken. So I know you were once on Air Force One with President Clinton. Tell that story quickly, and I think we're going to have to finish up.
Okay, yeah. So I got invited on Air Force One, and so we got to go to various campaign stops, and I went into the Air Force One Oval Office kind of, and I talked to Clinton for a while, and I gave him a book that I had out at that time, and the cover was something about the bloody gloves during the OJ trial fitting Hillary. Anyways, Clinton looked at it, and he laughed so hard he turned red. And I said, hey, would you consider doing a drawing of yourself? Because I said Reagan did a drawing of himself, and he got a second term. This was when Clinton was running for re-election. And so he said, well, let me think about it, because he was very busy. So I was heading back to, I think we were heading back to Washington or something. And he shows up, Clinton shows up in the press area, the back of the plane, and he motions me to come up. And so I'm walking up to him, and he's got a piece of paper in his hand. And that's right as the plane is taking off. And they didn't have flight attendants to tell you to take your seat. So Clinton turned his back to me, and he has his arms out, and he starts surfing into the acceleration of the plane. He's leaning forward. So I start doing that too. And I was crying. I was laughing so hard. So I'm finally, I'm pulling myself up to the chairs up to him, and he gives me this drawing that he had drawn of himself. And I can't remember what he's thinking something I can't remember. It was something I had told him, and he put it in the drawing. But now we have that in our foyer, hanging up, and it was just a fun moment to be with him.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mike. We're out of time. This has passed so quickly, and I want to thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Kevin.
For doing this. This was fun. As always, I want to thank the folks who are part of our audience and our subscribers. Again,
thank you,
we
subscribers.
can't tell you how much we appreciate your support. It lets us and lets Mike obviously do his work. We're going to do more events like this, so keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on us. You'll hear about them. You'll get emails about them. You'll see things online about them, and we hope to bring you these kind of special events as often as possible to reinforce that value of your subscription and our appreciation for it. So thank you very much. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.